Do you wish to learn about the most perilous consequence of older adults ceasing sexual activity? It's not what you might assume. It's not merely about enjoyment or romance. It impacts your heart, brain, immune system, and even your lifespan. Overlooking this issue could mean silently sacrificing your health year after year without realizing it. I'm Dr. Mojit Kara, a board-certified urologist with over 30 years of experience in men's and women's sexual health. I've treated thousands of aging patients and witnessed a recurring truth. When intimacy fades, vitality often diminishes, but it doesn't have to. Today, I'll clarify precisely what occurs in your body and life when sex is absent during your golden years. Many expect to slow down with age, but what if I told you that giving up sex doesn't just impact your love life? It can elevate your risk for heart disease, dementia, emotional isolation, and even premature death. The link is more profound than most people, even doctors, comprehend, and the repercussions are subtle until they become evident. In this video, I will present the science explaining why sexual activity in later life is not optional. It is essential. You'll discover how it bolsters your immune system, enhances brain function, safeguards your heart, and restores your confidence. I'll also share one simple daily habit that can revive your capacity for intimacy, even if it has been years. This small action could transform your sleep, mood, and overall outlook on life. So stay tuned. Before we proceed, if this message resonates with you, please hit the subscribe button and activate the bell to ensure you don't miss out on any life-changing health tips tailored specifically for you. If you find this valuable, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps me create content that genuinely supports your journey. Now, let's discuss what truly happens when intimacy diminishes, starting with your heart, an organ vital for life. Most individuals think about cholesterol, blood pressure, and medication regarding heart health, yet few recognize that a lack of physical intimacy in later life can quietly weaken the heart in ways that often go unnoticed until it's too late. Let me elaborate. Your heart starts to weaken. I recall one of my patients, George, a 68-year-old man who was active, sharp, and proud of his healthy habits, like nutritious eating, regular walking, and routine checkups. However, over time, he had gradually let physical intimacy with his wife slip away. He remarked, "It's just part of aging." What he didn't realize, and what many fail to see, is that intimacy is more than just an emotional bond. It is a lifeline to physical health, particularly for the heart. Engaging in sexual activity during older age functions as a gentle form of cardiovascular exercise. It enhances blood circulation, aids in lowering blood pressure, and keeps your arteries flexible. These benefits become increasingly critical as we age, particularly when the risks of stroke, heart attack, and hypertension rise. When intimacy vanishes from your life, even if everything else seems stable, your heart misses this healthy stimulation. Your heart is not just a muscle that pumps blood. It is also closely linked to how we perceive touch, affection, and emotional closeness during intimacy. Hormones like oxytocin and endorphins are released, which not only create feelings of happiness, but also actively reduce stress, lower inflammation, and help regulate heart rhythm. Without these, even with optimal cholesterol and a healthy diet, your heart has to work harder than necessary. Although George did not suffer a heart attack, he began to notice changes such as heavier breathing after climbing stairs, increased fatigue in the mornings, and an indescribable sense of uneasiness. Upon deeper discussion, I learned about the emotional gap he had been experiencing due to the absence of physical affection in his marriage. After gently restoring that connection, along with some mild medication, he returned months later feeling rejuvenated and more alive. Many seniors mistakenly believe that sexual health becomes irrelevant after a certain age. In reality, it may hold even greater importance, not for performance or passion, but for survival, strength, and peace of mind. But the heart is not the only part of the body that suffers when intimacy fades. What occurs next may surprise you, as the impact isn't solely internal. It also affects your physical mobility, balance, and even your strength on your feet. Let's discuss that now. If you're still engaged and this message resonates with you, please type 1 in the comments to let me know you're still here. Your presence is important. Now, let's delve into the next truth you need to hear. Muscles and joints lose vitality. Years ago, I treated a patient named Linda, a 72-year-old woman who was cheerful, witty, and the first to crack jokes during my exams. However, one day she mentioned feeling slower, stiffer, and unsteady on her feet. She assumed it was simply part of aging, but upon further exploration, I discovered something many overlook. She and her partner hadn't been intimate in nearly a decade, and she didn't believe it mattered. Yet it does. Intimacy is not only emotional, it is also a physical experience. During sexual activity, your body engages multiple muscle groups, including your core, thighs, back, hips, and pelvic floor. Movements that come naturally during intimacy contribute to maintaining muscle tone, flexibility, and balance. While it may not be a conventional workout, it offers measurable benefits that are particularly vital as we age. When such activity gradually disappears from your life, the effects are tangible. Muscles weaken due to disuse, joints stiffen, and balance deteriorates. Before long, you find yourself moving less, not out of choice, but because your body feels less capable. Along with that decline comes a loss of confidence. You start doubting your ability to move freely. This self-doubt often leads to further physical withdrawal. With Linda, once she and her partner began to rekindle intimacy through simple gestures like slow dancing or holding each other more often, her mobility improved. She reported standing taller, feeling steadier, and tiring less quickly. It wasn't magic, it was movement, purposeful, joyful, and consistent. Therefore, remaining sexually active is about pleasure, but it's also about empowerment, the power to stay mobile, strong, and feel like your body is still yours. But movement is just one aspect of the larger picture. What if I told you that letting go of intimacy doesn't just affect your body, but also your brain, not merely your mood, but your memory, focus, and risk of mental decline? What follows may change your perspective on aging forever. Your brain takes a hit. One memorable moment involved a conversation with a patient named Thomas, age 74, who came in for a routine visit. However, he seemed different, struggling to find words, losing track of stories mid-sentence, and appearing more withdrawn than usual. He looked at me and said, "Doc, I feel like I'm fading, not just my body, my mind." That struck me because I hear such sentiments more often than one might think. While we often discuss keeping our brains sharp through puzzles, reading, or diet, and those are indeed important, few realize how closely physical intimacy is linked to mental clarity. During sex, the brain releases a potent mix of chemicals, including dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. These aren't merely feel-good hormones. They reduce stress, enhance memory, elevate mood, and improve focus. For older adults, these serve as a natural defense against anxiety, depression, and even early cognitive decline. When intimacy disappears, your brain loses this chemical stimulation. It's akin to taking fuel from a fire. It doesn't extinguish immediately, but dims over time. The absence of physical connection can lead to emotional numbness, foggy memory, and a diminished sense of self. I've seen patients who, once they reintroduce intimacy, whether through sex, cuddling, or prolonged affectionate touch, report sharper thinking, improved mood, and a greater sense of presence. Thomas wasn't afflicted by a disease. He was suffering from disconnection. As he and his partner began to rebuild their Emotional and physical closeness, he confided. I don't just feel clearer. I feel like myself again. Our minds require stimulation not only from books or conversations, but through human connection. The warmth of touch, the spark of desire, the sense of being needed, all reminders to the brain that it still has a role to play, that it is still alive. However, the brain isn't the only aspect of you that quietly fades. What follows reaches into your innermost emotional core. When physical intimacy disappears, something even more painful begins to slip away, your capacity to feel deeply connected to your loved one. This loss can shatter even the strongest hearts. If you're still watching and these insights resonate, please drop a number 1 in the comments to let me know you're engaged. Now let's continue with an essential point. Emotional intimacy begins to fade. A few years ago, I met with a couple in their late 70s, Frank and Ellen, who had been married for over 50 years. They were the type of couple who used to finish each other's sentences, but recently something had shifted. They still cared deeply for one another, but Ellen admitted through quiet tears, "It feels like we're just living side by side. Now, not really together." Emotional distance doesn't typically occur suddenly. It seeps in gradually when physical intimacy diminishes. Sex is often misunderstood. It's not just about desire or pleasure, especially in later years. It becomes a means of expressing vulnerability, affection, and emotional truth. When that element fades from a relationship, a powerful form of connection is lost. Over time, couples stop reaching for one another. Conversations become logistical. Eye contact fades, and that spark, the one that conveys, "I see you, I value you, I still want you," begins to wane. It represents one of the quietest forms of grief I've witnessed in my practice. People still love each other deeply, but they feel more like companions than lovers, more like roommates than soulmates. The loss of emotional intimacy can lead to feelings of rejection, loneliness, and even resentment, often unspoken but deeply felt. Frank later shared something that resonated with me. "I thought we were just aging, but we were actually drifting." When he and Ellen intentionally began to rebuild their closeness through small touches, gentle conversations, and holding hands again, their dynamic transformed. He remarked that it was akin to falling in love all over again with the same person. As we age, our need for emotional connection does not diminish. In fact, it intensifies, and physical intimacy is one of the most powerful tools we have to maintain that connection. But emotional closeness isn't the only thing that deteriorates when intimacy fades. There's another aspect that quietly suffers night after night, something that influences how we heal, think, and function during the day. What is it? Let's discuss the one thing we all crave, yet struggle to maintain as we age. Deep. Sleep becomes a struggle. I remember a patient named Carol who visited me not for pain or illness, but because she couldn't sleep. At 70, she was vibrant, sharp, and active during the day, but every night she tossed and turned, sometimes managing only a few broken hours of rest. "I've tried everything," she said, "pills, meditation, even warm milk. Nothing helps." At first glance, it seemed like a typical aspect of aging, but as we talked more, something deeper emerged. Carol had also been devoid of physical intimacy for years. She hadn't realized the two were connected, but I understood better. Sexual intimacy triggers significant physiological changes in the body, especially after orgasm. The release of prolactin induces relaxation and prepares the body for deep sleep. Simultaneously, oxytocin, the bonding and comfort hormone, lowers stress and anxiety levels, facilitating both the initiation and maintenance of sleep. These are not negligible effects. They are integral to the body's natural rhythm. When intimacy wanes, that rhythm often becomes disrupted. Carol's sleeplessness wasn't just a symptom. It was a sign of disconnection, not only with her partner, but with the cues her body once relied on to wind down and recuperate. She didn't require another prescription. She needed to reawaken the softer, quieter aspects of herself that had become dormant over time. Through gentle touch, open conversations, and gradually restoring emotional closeness, her sleep improved. She later mentioned that it wasn't solely about rest. It was about feeling safe, held, and at peace once more. Sleep is the time when the body heals, where the brain sorts and stores memories, where the immune system rebuilds, and where emotional resilience is cultivated. Losing that means losing far more than just energy. It equates to losing stability. However, the repercussions of lost intimacy don't cease at night. There's something even more personal and vulnerable at stake, something that strikes at the core of how we perceive ourselves. When we cease feeling wanted or touched, we often begin to forget our own worth. What happens next may be the most detrimental consequence of all: self-esteem and confidence decline. I had a patient in his early 70s named Robert who sat across from me during a routine checkup. He embodied health, fit for his age, well-groomed, polite, but behind his calm facade I sensed something heavier. After some gentle conversation, he quietly confessed, "I don't feel like a man anymore. I feel invisible." That wasn't a medical complaint. It was a confession I've encountered in various forms from many men and women over the years. As we age, we anticipate certain changes: gray hair, slower steps, a few extra wrinkles. But many are unprepared for how profoundly the loss of physical intimacy can shake their sense of identity. When we no longer feel desired or touched, we begin to question our value. We wonder if we're still attractive, still worthy of closeness, still alive in that deeply human way. Over time, this quiet erosion of self-worth becomes more pronounced. We avoid mirrors, stop expressing affection, and shrink ourselves, not out of shame, but out of doubt. I recall Robert saying, "It's not that I don't want to be close, I just don't believe anyone would want me that way anymore." This belief is one of the most harmful myths surrounding aging, because in truth, desire does not expire, nor does the need to feel seen, touched, and loved. When Robert and his wife began to rebuild their intimacy, slowly and gently, without pressure, they both began to glow in ways I hadn't witnessed before. He returned months later and proclaimed, "I feel like I matter again." Confidence in later life is not about performance or appearances, it's about connection. It's about being reminded through touch and presence that you remain worthy of affection and joy. Physical intimacy, even in its simplest form, helps restore that truth, but it's not solely about self-perception. There's something else occurring quietly beneath the surface when intimacy fades, something that jeopardizes our ability to fend off illness. You may be surprised to learn that one of your body's most potent defense systems relies on connection, too. Let's discuss your immune system. Your immune system weakens. A woman named Grace visited me one autumn feeling frustrated and confused. At 69, she led an active lifestyle, maintained a healthy diet, and had always taken pride in her well-being. Yet that year, she struggled with recurring colds, low-grade infections, and overall fatigue. "I'm doing everything right," she lamented, "so why do I feel like I'm falling apart?" What Grace didn't recognize, and what many fail to, is that one of the most overlooked supports for the immune system is physical intimacy. We often think of immunity in terms of vitamins, flu shots, or exercise, and while those factors are important, they represent only part of the equation. Regular sexual activity, especially among older adults, has been shown to elevate levels of immunoglobulin A, IgA, a powerful antibody that defends against common illnesses. In other words, connection can literally aid in fighting off sickness. During intimacy, the body releases a mix of hormones that do more than just create pleasurable sensations. They reduce stress hormones like cortisol, which, when chronically elevated, can suppress immune function. Without this natural release of tension, our bodies become more susceptible, inflammation increases, and the immune system must work harder to keep pace. Over time, this wear and tear accumulates, resulting in more frequent illness, slower recovery, or unexplained fatigue. When I spoke with Grace about her personal life, she revealed a growing emotional and physical distance from her partner. It hadn't been intentional, it was simply something that had faded over time. They had both attributed it to aging, but with a little encouragement and the help of a counselor, they began reconnecting, first emotionally, then physically. A few months later, she returned, smiling. Fewer colds, more energy, and a vibrant appearance. She exclaimed, "I had no idea how much my body needed that." When we consider maintaining health, intimacy isn't often on our minds, but perhaps it should be. Sometimes the remedy your body requires most isn't found in a bottle. It's discovered in the warmth of another person. Speaking of remedies, there's another natural solution to aging that many overlook, one that directly combats one of the most destructive forces in the body: chronic stress. Let's explore this further. Stress and anxiety increase. I remember sitting with a patient named Harold, a retired school principal who had spent his life leading with calm and control. Now, in his early 80s, he described something that puzzled him. "I get irritated for no reason. Little things bother me more than they used to. I feel anxious, on edge, like I can't catch my breath, even when everything's fine." He initially dismissed it as merely age-related, but I understood better. What Harold was experiencing wasn't just aging, it was the gradual accumulation of unmanaged stress. Many people don't realize that one of the most effective, natural stress relievers is physical intimacy. When we engage in closeness, whether through sex, touch, or simple affection, the body releases a blend of calming hormones, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. These act as nature's own anxiety relief, reducing cortisol levels and restoring balance to the nervous system. Without this connection, stress has no outlet. It simmers beneath the surface, manifesting as irritability, sleep disturbances, headaches, digestive issues, and emotional exhaustion. It gradually wears you down in ways that often go unnoticed until it becomes overwhelming. I frequently ask my patients, when was the last time you felt genuinely close to someone, not just present but safe and relaxed? All too often, silence is the answer. For Harold, the solution wasn't a new prescription, but a heartfelt conversation with his wife. They had drifted apart, as many couples do over time, but as they took small steps to reconnect, quiet evenings, together touch without expectations, shared laughter, he began to feel lighter. "It's not just her," he confided one day. "It feels like I got part of myself back." Stress in older age is real, and often more hazardous than we realize. But the answer isn't always found in a pill bottle. Sometimes it lies in reaching out, allowing someone in, and permitting yourself to be held again. While stress can disrupt your inner world, another consequence of lost intimacy impacts your external relationships. When physical connection diminishes, something in your partnership begins to shift, and if left addressed, it can quietly pull two people apart. Let's examine what occurs in relationships when intimacy fades. Relationships become more fragile. Recently, a couple in their late 70s, Sam and Diane, sought my help, not for a medical issue, but because something in their relationship felt broken. They struggled to articulate it. "We still love each other," Diane said, "but it's as if we're living separate lives." There was no fighting or anger, just a growing distance, silence, and an expanding void where connection once thrived. The absence of physical intimacy was at the core of this issue. For decades, their marriage had been filled with laughter, closeness, and affection. But over the last few years, that touch had quietly vanished. It wasn't intentional, it simply faded as routines do when we assume time will carry us forward. Yet, in that absence, something deeper unraveled. Physical intimacy is more than a private act. It's a language, a way for couples to express, "I still see you, I still want you, and you still matter to me." When that language ceases to be spoken, the relationship loses its rhythm. Conversations become superficial, affection feels awkward, and that rich emotional connection that once made love feel vibrant begins to wither. Sam mentioned, "I thought we were just getting old, but I realized we stopped showing each other that we cared." With patience, openness, and small actions, such as hand-holding, quiet time together, and even sitting close on the couch, they started to restore their bond. As intimacy returned, so did laughter, playfulness, and a renewed sense of teamwork. Diane smiled and remarked, "It feels like we're waking up from a long nap." Our relationship can withstand many challenges, but neglect, especially emotional neglect, can inflict profound harm. Physical closeness is vital in preventing love from devolving into mere friendship and friendship from fading into habit. However, the story doesn't end there. When intimacy is absent for too long, something else begins to happen, something that affects your very body in ways that can be difficult to reverse. Let's discuss what occurs when your body forgets how to be intimate. The body forgets. I once had a conversation with a man named Paul. He was 76, his gaze directed down, and his voice was low. After being widowed for a few years, he had started dating again, but he shared a sentiment many feel too embarrassed to articulate. "My body doesn't seem to know how to respond anymore. I feel disconnected from her, from myself, like something inside me has gone to sleep and doesn't want to wake up." This sentiment resonated with me because I've heard it countless times, expressed in various forms by both men and women. The truth is, the human body, like any part of us, is highly responsive to habit and experience. When we go months or years without physical intimacy, without touch or stimulation, the body begins to adapt. Unfortunately, that adaptation often leads to decline. For men, this may manifest as slower arousal, difficulty maintaining an erection, or a decrease in desire. For women, it can result in increased vaginal dryness, diminished sensitivity, or discomfort during intimacy. These changes do not occur overnight. They unfold gradually, subtly, until the prospect of physical closeness starts to feel more like a challenge than a joy. With every moment of avoidance, the body drifts further from what it once easily remembered. However, here's the part many don't realize: your body wants to remember. It is designed for connection, closeness, and the life-affirming experience of intimacy. Even small steps, affectionate touch, soft caresses, emotional vulnerability can begin to rekindle what feels lost. I've witnessed couples in their 80s rediscover comfort, confidence, and even passion. Individuals have reclaimed a sense of aliveness they thought was long gone. After some encouragement and guidance, Paul began to explore intimacy again, not with pressure, but with patience. Over time, he expressed, "It's not about performance. It's about feeling human again." When you stop using a part of your body, it can fade, but when you nurture it again with care and time, it has the potential to remember, and often it heals. Now the question arises, where do you go from here? What can you do today to reclaim this part of your life, regardless of how long it has been? The answer may be simpler and more powerful than you think. If you've reached this point, perhaps something in these words has awakened something within you, a memory, a yearning, or even the quiet realization that you've been missing more than you realized. This awareness is the first step toward healing. The encouraging news is that no matter your age, it is entirely possible to reclaim intimacy in your life, and it doesn't require grand gestures. It can begin today with something small and profoundly human: the willingness to reconnect. Start by having an honest conversation with your partner, if you have one. Share your feelings. Express the things you might have been afraid to say. I miss being close. I feel distant. I want to feel connected again. These simple words can open a door that has been quietly closed for too long. Vulnerability is powerful. It invites trust, and trust invites touch. If you're single, remember that intimacy doesn't solely begin with another person. It starts with you. It involves rediscovering comfort in your own body and presence. You can nurture this through gentle self-care, movement, and mindfulness. Allowing yourself to feel sensual or curious again is a powerful act of self-respect. You don't need permission to feel alive. You only need the courage to start anew. For those facing physical barriers, such as dryness, discomfort, or low libido, don't hesitate to consult your doctor. You are not broken. These are common issues with genuine, manageable solutions. There is no shame in asking for help. There is only strength in choosing to care for your body and well-being. Begin with small gestures. Hold a hand, sit close, share a long hug, look someone in the eyes, and allow yourself to be seen. These seemingly minor actions are not insignificant. They form the foundation of intimacy, and from them, deeper connections can blossom. You haven't missed your opportunity. You haven't outlived desire. This aspect of your life is not behind you. It is waiting, and all it asks of you is to take the first step forward. As we near the end of this discussion, there's one last truth I want to share, a reminder that aging does not diminish your need for intimacy. It merely alters how it manifests. When you neglect that part of yourself, something very real begins to fade. I've seen it in the eyes of men who feel invisible in their own homes, and in the voices of women who whisper that they miss being held. These aren't minor aches. They are profound human needs that don't disappear with time. They evolve. You've learned how the absence of physical intimacy in later life affects not just the bedroom, but every facet of your life, your heart. Health, strength, memory, sleep, confidence, immunity, emotional stability, relationships, and even your sense of identity. This message isn't about yearning for youth or attempting to reverse the clock. It's about moving forward into a richer, more genuine season of life, one where connection still matters and desire retains its place. You are not alone if you've allowed this part of your life to quiet down. Many do. Yet, the beautiful truth is that it is never too late to reignite it, not through pressure or performance, but through presence, honesty, and care. Whether you've been with your partner for 50 years or are navigating life after loss, whether you feel unsure, hesitant, or afraid to start anew, there is space for you here. You are still capable of love. You are still deserving of touch. You are still enough. I have watched individuals in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s rediscover intimacy and exclaim, "I didn't know I could feel this alive again." If they can do it, so can you. So don't wait. Don't allow fear, shame, or outdated beliefs to prevent you from living the remainder of your life fully. Let this moment be the one where you choose to reconnect with your body, your partner, your sense of joy, and your essence. The most fulfilling years of your life are not behind you. They lie ahead, waiting to be created, not by chance, but by choice. One conversation, one touch, one moment of courage at a time. You deserve nothing less. If this message resonated with you, I encourage you to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and leave a comment below, even just one word about what part moved you the most. Your voice matters. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe and activate the bell so you never miss another conversation that supports your health, heart, and journey forward. Let's continue to grow together.